Copyright disclaimer. Under Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing nonprofit, educational, or personal use, tips the balance in favor of fair use. Okay, guys, I thought this would be interesting to read. Since Scientology and all these other religions are so expert at shuffling children around like little pieces of property, let's look to see what Wikipedia has to say about legal guardian. So far, I'm not finding a lot of information on illegal guardianships that Scientology has, but you know they do, I know they do, not just Scientology. Probably happens in Jehovah's Witness and all these other religions. And by the way, legal guardianship is another way that people traffic children, as well as these minor marriages, 14, 15, 16 years old. Legal guardian. A legal guardian is a person who has been appointed by a court or otherwise has a legal authority and the corresponding duty to make decisions relevant to the personal and property interests of another person. You see that? They even say property. Who is deemed incompetent. Called a ward. BJ Investigates covers a lot of these kinds of things. For example, a legal guardian might be granted the authority to make decisions regarding a ward's housing or medical care or manage the ward's finances. Guardianship is most appropriate when an alleged ward is functionally incapacitated, meaning they have a lagging skill critical to performing certain tasks, such as making important life decisions. Who deems that? That's the question. Guardianship intends to serve as a safeguard to protect the ward. Anyone can petition for a guardianship hearing if they believe another individual cannot make rational decisions on their own behalf. Can you imagine? Anybody can do that. In a guardianship hearing, a judge ultimately decides whether guardianship is appropriate, and if so, will appoint a guardian. Guardians are typically used in 4 situations. Guardianship for an incapacitated elderly person. Oh, this goes on a lot, you guys. Due to old age or infirmity. Guardianship for a minor, and guardianship for developmentally disabled adults, and for adults found to be incompetent. A family member is most commonly appointed guardian, though a professional guardian or public trustee may be appointed if a suitable family member is not available. I'd like to look more into that. Especially in Scientology, they do this a lot. It's really kind of crazy to me. So, especially brand new Scientologists that don't get what's going on yet, one of the first things they'll do with a lot of these brand new Scientology families is get the parents to sign over guardianship of their child to another Scientology family. So in order to bring the child into Sea Org or whatever it is. Maybe they want them to go to a Scientology school. The parents are still in Pennsylvania. They want to move to LA, whatever it is. But that's one also, too, isolation. They're getting the child away from the parents. That's number 1. 2, some of the guardian families are decent people and some are not decent people. So it just depends. Be curious to see how much this goes on with Scientology. Guardianship for incapacitated elderly. Yeah, meanwhile, while they take all these credit cards in their names. LAPDs, they're fine with that. Guardianship for an incapacitated elderly person typically arises when someone determines that an elderly person has become unable to care for their own person and or property. In fact, most alleged wards are elderly, 76 to 82 years, many of whom resided in a care facility and had been diagnosed with a neurological impairment, such as dementia. Typically, a precipitating incident prompts a professional family member, healthcare worker, or clergyman to initiate guardianship proceedings. While guardianship intends to protect and support incapacitated elderly people unable to care for themselves or engage in the activities of daily living without assistance, guardianship sometimes results in financial exploitation of wards. I've seen that numerous times. In between me going to college for social work, etc., and then afterwards, I worked as a caregiver. I saw that more times than you even can imagine. You got to be real careful who you trust, you know. The process will generally start with a determination whether the alleged incapacitated person is actually incapacitated. There will often be an evidentiary hearing. A systematic review of guardianship studies from the United States, Sweden, and Australia found that the most commonly used evidence in guardianship hearings was the alleged ward's medical condition. And you guys all know there's doctors probably in on this. Not that all doctors are doing it. I'm just saying. Anyone who can gain something, you gotta just be careful. Was the alleged ward's medical condition, perhaps, surprisingly, descriptions of the alleged ward's cognitive abilities, functional abilities, and psychiatric symptoms are much less common. Because that's not concrete. If the court determines an individual is incapacitated, the court then determines whether a guardian is necessary. The extent of the guardian's legal authority, e.g., a guardian may be needed for the person's finances, but not for the person. And if so, who the guardian should be. The determination of whether a guardianship is necessary may consider a number of factors, including whether there is a less restrictive alternative, such as the use of an already existing power of attorney and healthcare proxy. In some cases, a guardianship dispute can become quite contentious and can result in litigation between a parent and adult children or between different siblings against each other in what is essentially a pre-probate dispute over a parent's wealth. Abuses. You know, Scientology is all about the abuse. A report published in 2010 by the U.S. Government Accountability Office, oh, that's a new one I haven't heard of, looked at 20 selected close cases in which guardians stole or otherwise improperly obtained assets from clients. If financial crimes throughout the world, they're all about investigating. But when it comes to erring children, nobody wants to investigate. Otherwise improperly obtained assets from clients. In 6 of these 20 cases, the courts failed to adequately screen guardians ahead of time and, of course, and appointed individuals with criminal convictions or significant financial problems. And in 12 of 20 cases, the courts failed to oversee guardians once they had been appointed. And I mean, in the perfect world, we'd have a lot of money in all of these departments. And these departments, they have costs. You know, they have wage and labor and all that. In October 2017, the New Yorker published an article looking at the situation in Nevada in which professional guardians sometimes have a number of clients, and argued toward the conclusion that in a number of cases the courts did not properly oversee these arrangements. In 2018, the investigative documentary, The Guardians, was published, alleging legal kidnapping of elderly people. I hope I read something about children. In Nevada, by private guardianship businesses with no familial or other pre-existing relations to their wards, seeking to economically profit from senior savings. Guardianship for minors. Natural guardian. A minor child's parents are the child's natural guardians. You know what I was just thinking, though? Unfortunately, parents are never screened, are they? Legal guardian. Most jurisdictions recognize that the parents of a child are the natural guardians of the child, and that the parents may designate who shall become the child's legal guardian in the event of death, typically subject to the approval of the court. The court may appoint a guardian for a minor if their parents are disabled or deceased, or if the minor's parents cannot properly manage their child's safety and well-being. If a non-parent is appointed as guardian, the court will determine how the parent's parental rights are impacted by the appointment, e.g. establishing visitation schedules. By the way, a lot of times when these things are happening, like, for example, a mother goes to prison or a father goes to prison or jail, that's when the vultures swoop in for the trafficking. Yep. Every once in a blue moon there is or are officers, police officers involved in this. I'm not saying all of them are. Guardianship for developmentally disabled adults. Legal guardians may be appointed in guardianship cases for adults. See also conservatorship. For example, because parents are not automatically appointed to serve as the guardian of their developmentally disabled child who reaches adulthood, parents may start a guardianship action to become the legal guardians when the child reaches the age of majority. A famous example of such an arrangement is the situation involving Britney Spears. Yep. Well, there's a lot of that going on. You got to check out BJ Investigates. Was placed into a conservatorship under the supervision of her father, Jamie Spears. Vultures. And attorney Andrew Wallet in 2008, following a series of highly publicized personal struggles and issues with mental health. That's their catch-all, guys. All the times you see these celebrities, they had a breakdown, they have mental health issues. And by the way, a lot of times it's serious MK Ultra, like torture and all kinds of stuff. Anyone who would be put through that would have some kind of problems. Rules applicable to all guardians. Courts generally have the power to appoint a guardian for an individual in need of special protection. A guardian with responsibility for both the personal well-being and the financial interests of the ward is a general guardian. A person may also be appointed as a special guardian, having limited powers over the interests of the ward. A special guardian may, for example, be given the legal right to determine the disposition of the ward's property without being given any authority over the ward's person. By the way, this would apply to nursing homes, hospitals, independent living centers, daycare centers, and we all know that's where a lot of atrocities go on. Depending on the jurisdiction, a legal guardian may be called a conservator, tutor, custodian, or curator. Many jurisdictions in the Uniform Probate Code distinguish between a guardian or guardian of the person, who is an individual with authority over and fiduciary responsibilities for the physical person of the ward, and a conservator or guardian of the property of a ward, who has authority over and fiduciary responsibilities for significant property, often an inheritance or personal injury settlement, belonging to the ward. Some jurisdictions provide for public guardianship programs serving incapacitated adults or children. A guardian is a fiduciary and is held to a very high standard of care in exercising their powers. If the ward owns substantial property, then guardian may be required to give a surety bond to protect the ward in case dishonesty or incompetence on their part causes financial loss to the ward. Guardian ad litem. The Latin legal terms ad litem means for the lawsuit or for the legal proceeding. A guardian ad litem is thus someone appointed to represent in court the interest of a person too vulnerable to represent themselves, typically due to youth or mental incapacity. Guardianship is not federally regulated in the United States. Therefore, states vary widely in how they address and manage guardianship cases. Family law and dependency courts. Guardians ad litem are persons appointed by the court to represent the best interests of the child in court proceedings. They are not the same as legal guardians and are often appointed in underage children cases, many times to represent the interests of the minor children. Guardians ad litem may be called in some U.S. states court-appointed special advocates. In New York State, they are known as attorneys for the child. They are the voice of the child and may represent the child in court. Who screens them, by the way? With many judges adhering to any recommendation given by a GAL. GAL may assist where a child is removed from a hostile environment. What about taking them out of Scientology and getting them away from abusers? In custody given to the relevant state or county family services agency. That's not always good either. Because the vultures, they circle. And in those cases, assists in the protection of the minor child. Qualifications vary by state, ranging from no experience or qualification, volunteers to social workers, to attorney to others. The GAL's only job is to represent the minor children's best interest and advise the court. A guardian ad litem is an officer of the court, does not represent the parties in the suit, and often enjoys quasi-judicial immunity from any action from the parties involved in a particular case. Qualifications for becoming recognized as a GAL could differ in some states. In, for instance, North Carolina, an applicant volunteer must go through a background check. There you go. Hello. All the guardians going through background checks in Scientology? And complete 30 hours of training. In Minnesota, the minimum qualifications to become a GAL are bachelor's degree in psychology, social work, education, nursing, criminal justice, law, or child-related discipline, and some experience working with families and children, or an equivalent combination of education and relevant experience in addition. Experience as a guardian ad litem with completion of the guardian ad litem pre-service orientation requirements is requested. Although a guardian ad litem working through a CASA program volunteers their services, some guardians ad litem are paid for their services. They must submit detailed time and expense reports to the court for approval. Wonder how much they get paid. And they deserve to get paid, so. Their fees are taxed as costs. In the case, courts may order all parties to share in the cost, or the court may order a particular party to pay the fees. Volunteer guardians ad litem and those that volunteer through a CASA program need to make sure that they do not engage in the unauthorized practice of law. Therefore, when they appear in court, even if they are an attorney, as a volunteer GAL, it is best practice to be represented by an attorney and have attorneys file motions on their behalf. Guardians ad litem are also appointed in cases where there has been an allegation of child abuse, child neglect, PINS, juvenile delinquency, or dependency in these situations. The guardian ad litem is charged to represent the best interests of the minor child, which can differ from the position of the state or government agency, as well as the interest of the parent or guardian. These guardians ad litem vary by jurisdiction and can be volunteer advocates or attorneys. Hold on, you guys, this is a lot. Okay, there's a lot here. See, alternatives to guardianship. Because guardianship limits a ward's autonomy and ability to make certain life decisions. Scientology is all about that. Guardianship has the potential to damage a ward's health and well-being. As a result, we could ask Britney Spears, couldn't we? Individuals considering guardianship to support a loved one with functional incapacities might consider whether there are less restrictive alternatives that can achieve the same objective. 3 examples of alternatives including establishing advance directives, relying on supported decision-making, or taking advantage of community-related services that support individuals with functional limitations. Advance directives. If there's like health issues. So just for the heck of it, I thought, let's look guardianship by country. There's all different kinds here. Because Scientology is all about going in different countries. And they manipulate everything. Okay, this one's interesting. In the UK and Wales, or England, guardians ad litem are employed by Children and Family Court Advisory and Support Service, a non-departmental public body. Just go and look to see what's happening in England. It's not good, you guys. How do you think they harvest all the children? And in that case, I have seen numerous times where police were 100% involved. In 2006, a legal status of special guardianship was introduced using powers delegated by the Adoption and Children Act 2002 to allow for a child to be cared for by a person with rights similar to a traditional legal guardian, but without absolute legal separation from the child's birth parents. These are not to be confused with court-appointed special guardians in other jurisdictions. Okay, prisoners, that's interesting. There are a lot of good references here. This looks interesting. How the elderly lose their rights. Guardians can sell the assets and control the lives of senior citizens without their consent and reap a profit from it. Guardianship of children. I'm going to click on that. I want to see what that is. Huh, it's gone. You know what that tells me? They don't want people knowing. Because that was posted in 2017, I think. Okay, anyways, you guys, I will leave the link in the description box. Like and subscribe if you choose. Otherwise, have an amazing day or night wherever you are. Peace.